The champagne flute felt impossibly heavy in my hand as the server guided me past the glittering penthouse reception, past the crystal chandeliers, past the string quartet, past my son greeting guests in his tuxedo, and into a narrow service corridor that smelled of industrial cleaners and reheated canapes. "Here we are, ma'am," she said brightly, gesturing to a small table wedged between the kitchen entrance and a storage closet. White tablecloth, single-place setting, like a quarantine zone. Through the service window, I could see everything. 150 guests in evening wear, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, my son Michael laughing with people I'd never met. The party I'd been invited to, but apparently wasn't meant to attend. My chest constricted as Brielle Hastings, my future daughter-in-law, glided past the service window in her champagne silk gown, air-kissing an elderly woman dripping in diamonds. She looked radiant, confident, like someone who'd just successfully hidden an embarrassment. Me. "My name is Diana, I'm 54, and I'm a CEO. This is the story of how I taught my son's fiancé that the help sometimes owns the building. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up to how the evening actually started. 3 hours earlier, I'd pulled up to the Ashford Grand Hotel in my Mercedes, wearing a midnight blue Valentino gown I'd spent weeks selecting. The hotel's Art Deco facade gleamed in the late afternoon sun. 14 stories of restored 1920s glamour that I'd personally overseen the renovation of 6 years ago when I acquired it as part of a distressed asset portfolio. Because here's what nobody at this party knew yet. I didn't just own a hotel, I owned this hotel, along with 16 others across North America. Castellano Hotel Group, founded 30 years ago when I bought a failing roadside motel for $180,000 and turned it into something Forbes felt worth featuring. But when I approached the penthouse entrance that evening, the security guard took one look at my gown and pointed toward a side corridor without glancing up from his clipboard. "Catering entrance is that way, ma'am." I'd opened my mouth to correct him when a familiar voice cut through the lobby noise. "Diana, you made it!" Brielle appeared, all artificial warmth, her mother Olivia trailing behind in head-to-toe Chanel. "We were just discussing the seating arrangement." "There seems to be some confusion," I said carefully. "The security guard thinks I'm catering staff." Olivia's laugh sounded like breaking glass. "Oh, that's understandable, dear. Your dress is so practical. Not everyone has an eye for formal occasions." My $8,000 Valentino gown was practical. "About the seating," Brielle continued, linking her arm through mine with the false intimacy of someone handling a difficult situation. "We've had to make adjustments. The main reception is quite full. So many important people, but we've created a lovely spot for you near the kitchen. That way you'll be comfortable, away from all the social requirements." "Out of sight, you mean," I said quietly. "We're being considerate," Olivia interjected, her smile tightening. "These events can be so performative. You'll be able to relax without feeling like you need to make conversation with strangers." That's when I heard it. Brielle turning to her mother, voice lowered but not enough, not nearly enough. "Don't worry, Mother. I've seated Michael's embarrassing mother where Daddy's associates won't see her. Can you imagine her trying to network? She'd probably hand out business cards." Olivia's response was a conspiratorial murmur. "Smart thinking, darling. Just get through tonight. Then we can start managing Michael's family expectations properly." Something cold crystallized in my chest. Not anger. I'd expected dismissiveness from the Hastings family since the moment Michael introduced us. But this was active concealment. Architectural erasure of my existence from my own son's engagement party in a hotel I owned. "The kitchen area sounds perfect," I said, my voice warm as summer honey. "Very thoughtful of you both." Brielle's relief was visible. "Wonderful. Someone will escort you. Party starts at 7 p.m. That's how I ended up in that service corridor with the white tablecloth and single place setting. The moment I described at the beginning of this story, I followed a server through the back corridors, my heels clicking on polished concrete, until we reached the small table in the service corridor. From my position, I had a perfect view through the kitchen service window, could see everything happening at the party without being part of it. I pulled out my phone and texted Naomi Chen, my director of hotel operations. "At the penthouse party. Need you here. Bring Ian from building management." Her reply came instantly. "Everything okay?" "Define okay, just come." While I waited, I watched through that service window, saw the Hastings family holding court among Manhattan's elite, saw elderly men in expensive suits laughing at Brielle's father's jokes, saw my son, my brilliant software engineer son who'd graduated MIT summa cum laude, smiling politely at people who'd never bothered to learn his mother's name. Michael kept scanning the crowd, brow furrowed, looking for me. 10 minutes later, Naomi arrived with Ian Torres, the building manager, both of them dressed in the understated professional attire that screamed competence. When Naomi saw me sitting alone near the kitchen, her jaw actually dropped. "Ms. Castellano, what?" "I'm attending my son's engagement party," I said calmly. "As you can see, I've been given VIP treatment." Ian peered through the service window at the glittering reception. "That's the Hastings event. They booked 6 months ago, paid the $50,000 rental fee up front." "Fascinating," I murmured. "Naomi, remind me, when did we institute a policy of seating hotel owners in service corridors?" Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession. "Ms. Castellano, did they put you here deliberately?" My future daughter-in-law felt I'd be less embarrassing if I wasn't visible to important guests. I stood, smoothing my gown. "I think it's time for the actual owner to make an appearance. Ian, please inform Mr. and Mrs. Hastings that hotel management needs to discuss an urgent matter regarding their event." Ian's smile was pure professional satisfaction. "It would be my pleasure." 5 minutes later, Preston Hastings III materialized in the service corridor, irritation written across his patrician features. Olivia followed, her Chanel suit armor against whatever inconvenience awaited. "This is highly irregular," Preston announced. "We're hosting an event. What could possibly require interrupting—" He stopped when he saw me. Really saw me. Standing between Naomi and Ian, my posture straight, expression neutral. "Good evening, Mr. Hastings," I said pleasantly. "I'm Diana Castellano, CEO and owner of Castellano Hotel Group. We own the Ashford Grand, along with 16 other properties across North America. I understand you've rented our penthouse for an engagement party this evening." The color drained from his face like water from a broken glass. "Now," I continued, voice still friendly, almost conversational, "I'm trying to understand why I've been seated in a service corridor at my own son's engagement party, while you've filled the actual venue with your guests." "Diana," Preston's voice came out strangled, "we didn't realize. We thought—" "You thought what? That Michael's mother was a struggling single parent? Someone to be hidden away? Someone whose net worth didn't warrant basic respect?" Olivia found her voice, though it came out thin and reedy. "Michael never said you owned hotels. He said you worked in hospitality." "And you assumed that meant I was a hotel manager, maybe a desk clerk. You never asked for clarification." "We didn't know," Olivia repeated weakly. "You didn't care to know." I let that hang in the air. "Naomi, should we cancel the Hastings reservation? We can refund their deposit and they can relocate their 150 guests." "Cancel?" Olivia's voice went shrill. "We have people arriving right now." "People currently in a venue you're renting from me," I said, "and I'm deciding whether I want to continue hosting an event where I've been deliberately marginalized and hidden like something shameful." "Diana, please." Preston's commanding tone had dissolved into something approaching desperation. "This is clearly a misunderstanding. Brielle was just trying to hide me. Yes, I heard her tell your wife that I was embarrassing and needed to be kept away from your business associates." Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Brielle appeared, having noticed her parents' prolonged absence. When she saw the four of us, saw me flanked by hotel staff, saw her parents' stricken expressions, understanding dawned across her face like a slow-motion car crash. "What's happening?" Her voice had lost its earlier confidence. "Your future mother-in-law," Preston said tightly, "owns this hotel." "Every hotel in the Ashford chain, actually," I clarified, "including the one where you seated me in the kitchen because you found me embarrassing." "I didn't—" Brielle looked between her parents and me, mascara suddenly seeming too heavy on her lashes. Michael never said you owned. He said I worked in hospitality. You drew your own conclusions. I kept my voice even, factual. You met me, decided I wasn't appropriate for your social circle, and never bothered learning anything beyond your initial judgment. Michael's voice cut through the tension. Mom? I turned to see my son in the service corridor doorway, his expression cycling through confusion, realization, and something that looked like rage. Michael, Brielle started, but he wasn't looking at her. Mom, what are you doing back here? You were supposed to be at table 3 by the windows. There is no table 3 for your mother, I said gently. Brielle moved me. She thought I'd be more comfortable, less visible, near the kitchen. The silence that followed felt like falling. You did what? Michael's voice dropped to something dangerous and quiet. I didn't know she owned the hotel, Brielle said, and I watched my son's face change. So if she didn't own it, he said slowly, hiding her in a service corridor would have been fine? That's not what I meant. My mother built a billion-dollar company from a single motel she bought with a second mortgage 30 years ago. Michael's voice rose. She put me through MIT. She's been profiled in Forbes, keynoted at industry conferences, employs over 4,000 people. And you thought she wasn't appropriate for your guest list? Michael, please. Brielle reached for him. He stepped back. Is this who you are? Someone who judges people's worth by whether they meet your family's social standards? Someone who hides people when they don't measure up? I made a mistake. You made a choice. His voice cracked. You looked at my mother and decided she was embarrassing. What else have you decided about me, about where I come from? Preston tried to intervene. Son, let's all calm down. I'm not your son. Michael's words came out flat, final. He looked at Brielle. I need to think about whether I can marry someone who would do this. He walked away, back toward the glittering party. I watched him disappear into the crowd, undoubtedly searching for answers from the people who'd helped orchestrate this humiliation. I looked at the Hastings family, Preston's commanding presence crumbling, Olivia's social mask slipping, Brielle crying, and felt something unexpected. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just exhaustion. Here's what's going to happen, I said quietly. Your party will continue. You paid for the space, and I honor contracts. But Brielle, you and I need to have a serious conversation about whether you actually want to marry my son. Because if you're ashamed of where he comes from, if you need to hide his family to feel comfortable, this marriage will destroy both of you. I'm not ashamed. You seated his mother in a kitchen at his engagement party, in a hotel she owns. What would you call that? I turned to Naomi. Please escort me to the main reception. I'd like to greet my son's guests properly. We walked into the penthouse together, me in my Valentino gown, Naomi in her immaculate suit, Ian trailing behind with the kind of satisfied expression usually reserved for perfectly executed plans. Conversation stuttered and stopped as we entered. 150 pairs of eyes tracked our progress across the room. I saw Michael near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline, saw his face transform when he spotted me, relief and love and something like pride. He met me halfway across the room and pulled me into a tight hug. I'm so sorry, Mom. Not your fault. I should have made sure they understood who you are. You shouldn't have to explain your mother's worth, sweetheart. They should have seen it. We stood together by the windows, looking out at the city lights, while behind us the party slowly resumed its polite chatter. I could feel people staring, whispering, trying to piece together what had just happened. Brielle appeared beside us, mascara smudged, champagne silk gown somehow looking less elegant than it had an hour ago. Diana, I'm sorry. I was so wrong. I looked at her, really looked. She was young, 26, raised in a bubble of privilege that taught her to value pedigree over character, connections over capability. Brielle, I'm going to tell you something your mother never did. Where someone comes from matters less than where they're going. I came from nothing. I built something. That doesn't make me less than you. It makes me someone who understands the value of work. I know that now. Do you, or do you just know that I'm wealthy and therefore acceptable? I kept my voice gentle but firm. If I actually was a hotel manager, would you still be apologizing? Or would I still be sitting in that corridor while you celebrated with people who matter? She had no answer. Michael took my hand. Mom, can we leave? I don't want to be here anymore. We left together, mother and son, walking out of the party held in the building I owned, leaving Brielle and her family to explain to 150 guests why the groom had abandoned his own engagement party. I learned later from Naomi that the party continued for another awkward hour after we left, with Brielle eventually locked in the restroom and her parents making excuses to departing guests about Michael having a sudden family emergency. We took the elevator down in silence, and I handed my ticket to the valet. As we waited for my car, I could see the lit windows of the penthouse far above us, the party I'd been excluded from still glowing against the night sky. In the car driving back to my house in Westchester, Michael stared out the window at the passing city lights. I don't know if I can marry her, he said finally. That's between you and Brielle. But Michael, I waited until he looked at me. Never let anyone make you ashamed of where you came from. I'm not embarrassing, I'm extraordinary, and so are you. I know, Mom. His voice was thick. I've always known. 2 weeks later, Michael called Brielle and told her he couldn't marry someone who judged people by their bank accounts rather than their character. She returned the ring by courier the next day without a note. Just the velvet box I'd seen on her finger that terrible evening. The Hastings family tried to salvage it. Preston even called me directly, offered to make this right, suggested we all have dinner to start fresh. But Michael had seen something he couldn't unsee. Who Brielle became when she thought no one important was watching. 6 months after the engagement officially ended, Michael met someone new at a tech conference in Boston. Rachel was a high school physics teacher who, when I mentioned I owned hotels, asked 100 questions about sustainable building practices and whether I'd considered programs to train young people from underserved communities for hospitality careers. When Michael proposed to Rachel 8 months later at a quiet dinner at my favorite Italian restaurant, she said yes before he'd even finished asking. At their small engagement party at my house, no rented venues, no seating charts, just family and friends on my back patio, Rachel told me I was the most inspiring person she'd ever met. No one was seated near the kitchen. I learned something that night at the Ashford Grand, something I probably should have known all along but needed to experience to truly understand. The people who treat you like you're invisible when they think you're struggling are the exact same people who will grovel when they learn you're successful. Real character shows up when there's nothing to gain. Brielle Hastings saw a woman who worked in hospitality and decided I was embarrassing. She never saw the CEO who'd fought for every dollar, never saw the empire builder who'd turned one failing motel into a luxury hotel group, never saw the mother who'd sacrificed to give her son every opportunity she'd never had. That wasn't my failure. It was hers. And here's the thing about owning buildings. You never have to accept being hidden in them. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.